All right, we're gonna call this meeting to order. Today is March 14th, the regular board meeting of the Humboldt Bay Harbor District, Humboldt Bay Harbor Recreation and Conservation District Board of Commissioners. I guess I'll call it to order with a roll call, please.
Commissioner Higgins,
Present.
Commissioner Benson,
Present.
Commissioner Coleman,
I'm here.
Commissioner Newman, and President Dale.
Yes, I'm here. Pledge of allegiance. Heidi, while you're standing, would you please? Sorry.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Ryan, you want to give us a report on closed session?
Yeah, there was no reportable action taken during tonight's closed session.
Thank you. At this point in our agenda, the public is welcome to comment on items not on the agenda. If you wish to speak on things that are not agendized tonight, please step to the mic. If you would, give us your name and where you're from and fill us in on what you want to talk about. Seeing none, I'm going to move to consent calendar.
I'd like to make a report. Go ahead, Stephen.
No, you started. You make the request to pull it.
Who's gonna pull it first? But I guess I would like to pull for discussion, item 8E, considering accepting the application for filing Harbor District Permit 2024-01, the billboard repair.
Okay. And would you make a motion to approve the remainder of the consent calendar?
Yes, so I'll make a motion to present items 8A through 8D on the consent calendar, pulling item.
I'll second that.
So we have a motion and second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Seeing none.
Report in progress.
Is a permit application for repair to a billboard. So this is not a permit issuance. This is not a permit hearing. This is simply to receive the application for filing. Once it's received, then staff would do the work to make the appropriate findings or not. Either approve or deny the application, possibly with conditions if it was to receive approval. That's the matter before you this evening.
Please.
Just a couple questions. Is it our usual process that it comes to the board to accept the permit for filing and then
That is
address
correct.
the permit,
You're accepting the application for filing.
accepting the application? Okay. All right, maybe just because of the type of permits, because I don't, like with some of the other like Caltrans permits for their bridge repairs or things like that. We've done that too, where we first accept it for filing and then. Okay,
Yes, according to the Harbor Navigation Code, this is the process we're obligated to follow. So when someone applies, we bring it to the board and say, will you accept this application for filing? Once you say yes, then staff proceeds with an analysis, brings the report back to you with a recommendation for approval or denial. And it's at that point that you can approve or deny the project.
and what do we then consider when we're considering whether we're going to accept? Is it like whether you consider the permit application complete
No,
or just that a piece of paper came to us in the door and we're not throwing it back out the door?
it's really a determination as to whether the application is worth evaluating or not. So if someone submits, they get our application form, they submit an application to say build a 90-story hotel in the dead center of Arcata Bay. That would conflict with the Harbor Navigation Code. It would conflict with the Humboldt Bay management plan that the board adopted. And so you could say this is so fundamentally in opposition to what we are permitted to even consider that there's no point in wasting staff time to analyze this issue. So in this case, we feel like this application is worth analyzing, and so we recommend that you accept the application for filing so we can do the analysis. So it's really looking for your permission as to whether we should analyze this or not. Is what this action is.
Of course, we received stuff from Jen Colt at Humboldt Waterkeepers. We received a couple folks asking us to not accept this application, and considering that it's incomplete. You know, and I worry about setting precedent, and I don't want to waste your staff time if in fact it is, incomplete, at this time. And you know, what I was able to see from it is that there's a kind of a to-do list, but there's not a set of plans. It's unclear to me why it's a repair rather than a rebuild, and kind of the difference between those. I looking, again, being a newer harbor commissioner, I went through the management plan, and and I saw goals for signage that was focused on interpretive signage and wayfinding for navigation. I didn't find a policy around the billboards. I may have just missed it, but I kept searching. It's a long document. So I'd like to have a chance to review that before this, this comes back to us. I just didn't. And I did see RVR7 where the district might consider a future policy on billboard controls. And maybe that was done because 2007 was a long time ago when this management happens. And I'm not entirely clear what's been done, what hasn't been done, and whether that recommendation was followed, and whether there is some verbiage about that I'm just missing. So I'd just like to have some more information to make a better decision.
Would you like that this evening or when this returns?
Whenever is convenient for y'all. I don't have a.
The district does have a policy surrounding billboards specifically. Ordinance number 7, I believe it is, was amended to deem non-navigational signage as non-conforming signage.
Right.
But in that process, there's a period of time before that actually becomes the rule. And so we have to review that and determine if this particular application qualifies or does not qualify under that matter. And that would be part of what would be considered when we process the application.
Is there any compelling reason why assuming some level of incompleteness with the application that we are considering it? Is there some reason to fast track it or forward it?
Yeah, it's not fast tracking per se. I think in a matter of cooperation with the applicant, it would be easy enough in this case, since we have some familiarity with it, to simply ask the applicant to make some clear indications before we begin that process. So
If it were a rebuild and not a repair, could we expect to see some kind of plans, specifications at some level?
that would come at a building permit. It certainly could be reviewed by our staff to see if it even qualifies for that process. Yes. But really what we're looking for is what does the applicant tend to do? Is that permitted in our particular area? And then what referrals to other agencies are necessary? It's the methods, not necessarily what he's doing. It's the methods of which he's going. Go ahead, Director.
I can add to that. Per the Harbor Navigation Code, we regulate things, and this is non-scientific terminology from the Harbor Navigation Code. We regulate things from the high tide line downward, right? Mean high water is how we interpret that. There's no such thing as mean high tide line, right? But per high tide line. So we're not a building department. Right, we don't need a building plan. We don't need to comply with the building code. This is about things that touch the water of the bay.
Right.
So I deem the application sufficient for us to process it. Right, no application's ever perfect. It's almost never the case where I don't ask an applicant for more information. So it's complete enough for us to proceed.
I guess my other question is, and it's again, on a learning curve here about what has. What's really impacting our trust resources, and the management plan gives a pretty good explanation. I think Chad Roberts was responsible for there was an explanation early on in the executive summary about what those is and what we're trying to protect. And so I'm looking for an understanding of how. And I'm not just don't get me wrong. I'm not in strict opposition to billboards, but I do want to understand what the interaction with billboards and our trust bay resources are. I mean, it's really easy to see that with mariculture or other kinds of commercial industry, that there's a nexus. It's coastal dependent, and it's So that's a question to be asking if we're asked to review this at a later time, or just giving you a heads up on that. I just want to better understand what's the interaction with Bay Resources that's positive, that enhances the bay and enhances the sign.
So we can be prepared to give a brief presentation, if you so direct, at a future meeting as to our permit process, and then specifically the ordinance which governs signage. We can definitely, or this particular matter, we can definitely do that. Not a problem whatsoever.
I would really appreciate another chance to review this with a little bit more information and background, because more signs might come forward in the time that I'm on Harvard.
Yeah.
So I just want to do the first one right.
It doesn't cause us to necessarily have the opportunity to punt tonight. We still have to make a decision on this particular application, but we can bring that back at a future date just for educational purposes. Absolutely. Happy to do so. All right.
I think what would be also useful for that meeting is to look at the minutes from the last time we had this conversation. And perhaps the time before when we had this conversation, it's a little bit of frustration might be expected that it seems like we've had this conversation.
So there is an ordinance that was amended and it was published in the local publication as required. And so that's what we have to follow now, but we absolutely can provide a tutorial if that would be appropriate. And we can share with board members prior to that in our packet, the information surrounding that prior area. Current staff was not leading that cause at that point in time, so we had to do a pretty good dive and educate ourselves actually. So all that's very available and was happy to prepare it for you all.
And that's called ordinance number 7. Is that what I read?
Yes.
Thank you.
Patrick? So I distinctly remember voting to not allow billboards to be rebuilt. That was number 7, ordinance number 7. And we did vote affirmative to not allow billboards to be rebuilt. And it was unanimous. There was some specifics, legal specifics that need to be addressed as far as that goes for take, is my understanding.
Correct.
And we are in that process, accepting this permit as much as I feel the need not to accept the permit. It is our process to work through that process, to accept the permit, the filing, so that we can, the application, sorry. Thank you, Rob, for that. The application, so that we can work through that process. So in effect, we need to accept the application so that staff can work through that process with the application and the applicant.
And is it in our purview to ask for a more complete application so that we're not wasting staff time? I don't want to assume that it's a waste of staff time, but so staff doesn't just simply have to say, send it back and say, we need more information to process this.
They're gonna need more information no matter what, so I don't think. I understand what you're saying,
Yeah.
and I'm completely on board with that, but I'm not sure that it matters.
Mhm.
And I think to get this process moving and to move through the process, we just need to accept the application and move on. As much as it pains me to say that. So I would take it to the audience.
Dave Missouri from Arcata. The application is absurd. It's so incomplete. I'm in the process of getting a coastal development permit for a project I'm doing up in McKinleyville. And if I were to submit this, they would laugh at me. I realize that's the coastal zone, which this also should go before. And it also violates their rules. Just quickly going through it, and I'm representing Jen Calls here also, who is is unable to come and asked me to attend. I mean, not only is it incomplete, but it's also inaccurate. Is the project located within 100 feet of previously mapped known eelgrass habitat? Well, the eelgrass habitat ends maybe 100 feet south of Indianola, so it's really close to that, according to the map that I looked at. He says no. Is any portion of the project located in an area with depths ranging from -10 to +4 feet? He says no. Well, I know from kayaking out there that very often the billboard base is underwater. As a matter of fact, that's why it fell over. Because it's been underwater for many years. Will the construction require the use of a barge or other vessel that may temporarily impact the bay floor with known eelgrass habitat or within depths ranging from -10 to +4 feet? Well, not a barge, but an excavator. And the plan is to drive 6 by 12, I assume pressure treat supports 10 feet down into the mud. If that doesn't impact the environment, the intertidal environment, I don't know what does. How about change in scenic views or vistas from existing residential areas or public lands or roads? No. Okay, so you put a billboard up between the bay and the highway and you're in no way changing the scenic view or vista from a road? I mean, it's almost laughable. How will the proposed use or activity promote the public health, safety, comfort, and convenience? Yes. Okay, that's a good answer. How is the request grant permit franchise lease by right or privilege required by the public convenience and necessity? By ordinance. Anyway, and then if we read the district's amendment number 2 to ordinance 7, section 4, states that no permit may be issued authorizing an ongoing billboard or off-premise sign or structure use or its maintenance, repair, or reconstruction without the district first considering of the impact of the proposed use on the air, water, land, environment, and ecology of the district's lands, and thereafter finding that the proposed use is necessary to promote the safety, health, comfort, and public convenience of the public.
Dave, wrap it up, okay?
I will.
Thank you.
That the proposed use is required by the public convenience and that the proposed use will not have an adverse environmental or an ecological effect. Clearly, this doesn't meet those parameters. The only thing this is creating is profit for the person doing it. So excavator in the wetlands, I don't think so. And to accept this application would be ludicrous, I think. It is so incomplete. If we're just incomplete, it would be one thing. It's inaccurate.
Thank you. Anyone else care to speak on this item?
Hi, my name is Jack Norton. Live in McKinleyville. And I just was, ignorant of this agenda item, but I heard a little bit at the beginning and Dave's comments there and your own that said that you unanimously voted not to ever replace or rebuild a billboard after it fell down. So why would you even accept the application? I just don't understand that process. Maybe, but again, that's about no concerns and the views that Dave articulated. I'm just, it's just like the view and consider it. Anyone else care to speak on
Bring that up, and bring it back to the board. That is your pleasure.
I think the things, you know, when an application has information where it doesn't appear that the applicant is responding to the same question as is asked. It does raise questions as to whether or not they've done due diligence in filing. And they should correct their application, I think. And I don't like, you know, I'm not a process guy. I don't like to kind of go back around, but I think that the points that are raised are valid, so I have to. I guess I've just been persuaded, and I read it, but then to hear Dave speak it, I think the points are valid, and so the application should be correct when filed.
Is that a motion? Doesn't sound like a motion.
Huh?
I need a motion.
Okay. I move that we not accept this application.
Also,
A motion and a second. Any discussion?
I guess, yeah, I'm having a hard time with this one too. I see this as a non-conforming use. To our code. I would. And I can ask staff questions while there's
Yes.
a motion on the table, right? And I know you can't predict the future, but what do you think happens and if we just reject this for filing? Does the applicant have a chance to refile or?
They'll be back next month, I would guess.
I mean, or since our legal counsel sitting here too, maybe.
So
Well, just so the board is aware, I have a conflict on this, and so Nancy Diamond's been advising
That's-
staff on both the ordinance and this particular permit.
let's go through the ordinance just a tad bit here. So again, the planning or the development director has said, listen, there might be some deficiencies in the application. The intent is to go ahead and reach out to the applicant, ask for clarification, right? So we could do that in a couple of different ways. Perhaps we could, accept it, provided that, the applicant within X number of days corrects his application or withdraws and submits a clear one. Outside of that issue, you asked about this non-conforming signage. So this is very abstract. I'm not here to get into every level of this evening. I would be happy to bring it back. So the situation that we have here is in approximately 2020, the board took action to amend an ordinance that governed this. In that ordinance, this type of signage was deemed non-conforming signage. To avoid a taking action, there was a period in which applicants would then have the opportunity to repair signs, bring them up to a suitable standard through the appropriate permits, and then apply for a district administrative permit, which would allow them then to have that sign for a period of 60 months or 5 years thereafter. The matter that we have in this particular sign is staff cannot find evidence that the district issued an administrative permit on this or required that a district permit be issued. So we now are in a situation where we will have to provide notice to the applicant or to people that have signage, owners that have signage within a certain footprint, that you have to come get a district administrative permit. If people do that voluntarily, it starts the 5-year clock. If they do not do it voluntarily, we will treat the notice that we issue as the start of that 5-year clock. That specific task, to the best of our research, has not occurred. So we need to follow the letter and make that occur. So in this particular case, if we're able to make the findings to approve the permit, a condition on the permit would be that the applicant has got to get a district administrative permit, and we refer it for a building permit, which will likely create a referral to the California Coastal Commission for their permit. So hopefully that provides a little bit more on the process. The 5-year period is an amortization to avoid a taking claim. I wouldn't necessarily call it eminent domain, but that's kind of the parallel there to help better understand what that is. That's a remuneration or a value. So an applicant could seek damages for the loss of that opportunity. And so I think it's important that we consider that as part of the action.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
So it sounds like were we to accept this permit for filing, that could lead to a process that would have further implications.
And it will come
For
back,
this
come
particular
back to the board
permit.
as well.
And then the permit itself, we wouldn't be approving any permit with this action. So whatever permit is eventually filed with whatever corrections being referred to the appropriate agencies as we need. So they would have to review it before it ever comes back to us or at some sort of action. That's my understanding of what you said.
It was our permit. So if we process the application and we can make the findings to approve the permit, we would bring it back and we would issue our permit with conditions. And conditions would include a district administrative permit and the issuance of a building permit. So technically, he couldn't take any action until he got that building permit. That building permit, jump in, but it should trigger other referrals at the county level. And it'll be in the coastal zone. Therefore, in order to do construction work in the coastal zone, you'll have to get a CDP, coastal development permit. So I apologize, this is a bit confusing. There's a lot of steps here. I think what staff's recommending is accept the permit for filing, allow staff to work with the applicant to correct the deficiencies in the application. It's a courtesy, that's all it is. Staff will then do the work to make the determination if a permit can or cannot be issued. And if it can be issued, what conditions would be attached to that permit for issuance? That will then come back to the board for the same type of hearing as we're having tonight. More formal, it'll be a business item, not a consent item. So
I'm okay with that.
Well,
Give
you made
give
the
staff
motion.
discretion and not make staff work more to negotiate so that this application is correct and then their discretion to formally file it. If that's what I understood, I'm okay with that. I mean, it's just like it gets corrected and we're not accepting it, we're accepting it conditionally so that it's improved to where it conforms.
And we're not accepting anything other than the filing.
Filing of
There's
the
the
application
action,
for a
yeah.
permit, correct?
I guess my concern remains. I don't want to waste time with staff and I don't want to waste time of an applicant and, and looking down at what the coastal commission is going to do. And then I assume California Department of Fish and Wildlife. Also, I don't see any, I prefer not to kick the can down the road to other agencies so that we send a message to applicants for projects that we don't think have a very good chance in order to, to me, that's a courtesy as well. And it's also a courtesy to give them a chance. So I'm on the fence about that.
Speaking just respectfully, I just want to make a point that it's our responsibility to process our portion of the permit.
Yeah.
And not to direct how future work could go. In no mean ways am I correcting you, Commissioner. I just want to make sure that we don't make decisions based on what other agencies might do. We have to process our permit or what's the application that's before us.
And as you know, I think that's may not be perfectly clear because this is kind of a odd subject. Billboards in property that nobody is in no man's land, literally no man's land.
Not if you're a native species.
But we worked through this a number of years ago. And it was very tricky. And it's a process that I think we had a good plan to address it. You're no freaking help either. Just don't even look at me. Thanks.
I think it's in order for me to withdraw my motion.
I think it is, but I think that the process needs to occur and
Let me see.
And
if
we
I can
dropped
get
the
a-
ball.
Let me see if I can
It's
get
our-
a second
it's
from
our
Craig
fault.
on this. The board, I move that we conditionally approve this filing based on staff working to make sure that the corrections are made.
Accept the
as
application
documents.
filing, accept that filing,
So,
accept the filing.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm gonna dig in my heels on this. I don't want to accept. it.
okay, so I can't get a second from him.
No,
Actually,
but
what's
you don't need
parliamentary
it.
on it? If I want to withdraw and he doesn't want me to withdraw.
No, you can
Do we have
withdraw
to
your
vote?
motion.
The maker of the
But
motion,
Without
And then
the,
you can make you don't need a second to withdraw your motion. You can withdraw your motion.
okay, I did.
And then you can make another motion.
Okay, now I made another motion, but he wouldn't give me a second to give me.
But
a
you
second.
don't need him to, I can second it.
All right, there we go.
And I'll second.
Anybody
that.
out there? Can I get a second?
And so I've gone back and forth on this, like on my vote like 5 times already, just sitting up here. And I'll say, when this comes back, I'd like, I'm sure staff is planning on doing this. I'd like more research on what actually happened with our last ordinance and whether passing that ordinance was in and itself notice, or I'd like and maybe since we're using outside counsel, maybe outside counsel could be here to explain this to us next time, because it is kind of gray and convoluted what I'm hearing, state unequivocally that I don't think a billboard, reconstructing the billboard is within our operations plan, within our harbors and navigations plan. I think it's a non-conforming use, but I think the process is best served by accepting the filing of this in order to do due process on it.
Yeah, because we've been informed about our exposure in this regard. And we're open to litigation unless we went through the process as described, so. Let's hope that kind of there's something in the trail, paper trail, but I mean, think that deviating from that, if they haven't had legal notice, could have legal implications. So, yeah, we want to be fully informed when this comes back.
And regardless, it's up to us to like vote it up or down when it comes.
I know, but if they haven't been noticed and we voted up to.
How many
I'm
times-
not gonna presume.
How many
I-
times
I-
have we been sued since you've been here? Come on.
Sorry.
We could take a couple more. Sorry, staff.
No problem. I just want to I do want to clarify that if we want to bring this back. So what I hear tonight is we're going to accept the application. That hasn't gone to a vote yet for filing. As for bringing the matter back, so it would have to be a special meeting because the counsel that we are receiving on this item is not available due to other obligations during this particular time. So if we do that, we'll have to call a special meeting to hear this one item. So I don't know if there's another method that we can correspond, and I can work with counsel on that to make sure we do it without any violation of any acts. But perhaps we could respond in a manner to a board that would be appropriate to get the findings to you. But in essence, you get the gist of where we're at and what staff is looking to correct. So we have a process that's both reflective of what we intended in the modification or the amendment of the ordinance, while still respecting the rights of the people in the community that we represent. That's all members of the community, including the applicant. So we simply just want to do the right thing.
Yep. So I have a motion and a second. And we've had our discussion. So I'm gonna call the question. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed,
Do I say aye or nay?
use either one.
Nay.
All right, motion passes.
And thanks for your diligence on this stuff.
Maybe Ryan could fill in for our outside counsel on the night that she committed and she could come here and fill in for him.
Did we vote on the consent calendar?
Yeah, consent calendar's gone. So now we're into communications reports and correspondence.
Okay, looks like it's my turn. Is that right? Does it go to the executive director's report first? My apology. We do have one item of correspondence received that was on the matter that we just heard. You ready for me now?
Yeah, please.
Alright.
Sorry.
So busy month. We've got so much going on. I do want to take just a moment. I told you I'd be introducing some of our new staff. So we hired two new harbor maintenance workers. Ron McLean, who we're going to talk about this evening. He is not present. He's doing his 40-hour HAZWOPER training this week. So busy. I did hope to have him come in here. But Ron just joined us along with another young man. He was raised in Napa County, graduated high school in 1988. A heck of a sports player. He played both high school and junior college soccer. He met his wife in Alaska in 1994. They've been married ever since. They moved to Eureka after their daughter Aries was born in 1995. He worked in the lumber industry here, was the maintenance manager for Fairhaven Business Park for 15 years. And now he started a new journey with us. So we're really happy to welcome Ron. We're excited there. We have a new tradition here at the Harbor District, and that is a jacket. We borrowed this from the Humboldt Bay Municipal Water District, who does a good thing. So all of our maintenance staff received these recently, but it's a nice weather jacket with our logo on it. And so we just want to welcome Ron McLean to our team. So a bummer that he missed it this evening, but
We'll get to see him again.
we're real pleased, and we thank Mindy and Corey for recruiting him.
Make them come to the special meeting.
There we go. Sounds good. So we have a chip ship in. Some of you may have seen it. It's called the Grove Island. It's getting a full load of chips from Green Diamond Terminal. So that's 2 in a row. We're on a great roll right now with our commerce. The barn entrance remains passable. There's been some minor shoaling. We're very grateful for our bar pilots, ZNC Marine and staff who go out and take soundings periodically to see how we're doing in our bar. But with the great work of the Corps, we've really enjoyed, despite all of the storms we've had this year, a nice open entrance. The U.S. Coast Guard for weather closed it once. I believe it was a 3-day closure. But overall, no issues for ship traffic. So really happy. With that said, we had the civilian leadership from the Army Corps here just 2 weeks ago. Able to sit down in the room and talk with them, tour them around Humboldt Bay, help them to understand some of the projects that are going on here, to see the good work their predecessors did on the North and South Jetty, and get to know them a little bit better as we continue our maintenance dredging here, but also we embark on capital dredging and channel modification to support the emerging heavy lift marine terminal in the industry, which is headed into Humboldt Bay. Today was the California Maritime Security Council meeting. The district participates as the Port of Humboldt Bay. This has been a great learning lesson for staff, and as our port becomes of real significance again here in the West, this will be a very vital part of what we do. So that's a little bit of training and mentorship for us. I'm just going to point out that our MARAD leader, Gus Hine, is on that council, so it was nice to have him there. We were successful in securing a contract amendment or a change order, if you will, with Dutra to finish dredging of Woodley Island Marina. I'm happy to report that we were able to negotiate, that's Ryan and I, no mobilization, demobilization extra charges. So this is really notable that Dutra really wants to do, as we thought they would, the work. And we are working with them and potentially the city of Eureka to see if there could be other maintenance dredging in the region and make this meaningful for everyone. But they called today. They are looking early in the season, which is a huge sign. Let's be cautious with that date till we actually get a commitment, but really happy and feel very good to be able to finally report that. The State Lands Commission Executive Director reached out and introduced herself recently. We have an item before the State Lands Commission right now, and their leadership is coming to Humboldt Bay to visit us. The current Executive Director, Jennifer Lachesi, has not been to Humboldt Bay, so that'll be a great visit. And now we have some issues with our marine outfall line. I can tell you our district engineer has been up for about 48 hours. He's been working on this line, no sleep. He's really exhausted. He's brought in Moffitt Nickel for some extra help, and we've applied for emergency CDP. Melissa Kramer's been absolutely fabulous to work with on this issue over at the Coastal Commission. So a very positive nod and thank you to Melissa and her team. We've had some storms this year, and it isn't necessarily the storms that have hit us. It is the surf. The surf has absolutely eroded Humboldt Bay, the beach, just adjacent Humboldt Bay on the Samoa Peninsula. We lose a large portion of our beach each year, but we get it back. This year, absolutely remarkable. And this is extraordinary on every level. This is our 1.5 mile marine outfall line. This clearly is not at that measurement.
All
But-
you need is some 38 or 40-foot waves.
Yeah, it's really got us. Yeah, it's really got us. So this is an exposure of the outfall line. That is not completely uncommon on very low tides, but it's happening even on our higher tides, even on our surges. So we've lost a very large portion of the beach. This particular area here, it looks like we've got a convex section of the pipe that is of concern. It is a lined pipe, so we're not necessarily in imminent danger of anything coming out of the pipe. But obviously we want to secure this very vital infrastructure. That's why we called for the emergency coastal development permit. So this is the section here where it comes up out of the ground. We raise into this little convex section. SHN has been out there, but and again with the lighting in here, I'm sorry, y'all, it's probably not as easy to see, but now we've got the cover damage that's starting to occur here. So we have these retainer rings that are starting to come undone, and we're losing some of the armoring that's around this pipe. You also can see the excessive amount of marine debris that have washed up. So this is just a matter of a couple of days. This is over the weekend in storm surge, and this is what we've got. So this is very urgent for us. The good thing is we've got the right people working on it. And just another look from up above the beach at the amount of debris that's coming in and hammering around here, not just at the outfall line, this is up and down the peninsula, but significant to us. This shows you this beach erosion here. This is probably 300 feet from New Navy Base Road. I mean, we're just getting our beach wiped out this year. This is coastal dune, which typically comes down, and then we've got this giant shore we walk down before we get down to the water's edge. Just one more demonstration, and I don't want to harp on this too much, but I'm just trying to demonstrate to you really why we're exposed and why we've lost this and the significance of it. So,
Yeah, and it's like, because the jetties starve the system, the over the transport gets as far as Humboldt Bay, then it doesn't get further.
Right.
And so this is a manifestation of that problem that was recently identified by geologists.
this really makes a case for the nearshore placement that the Army Corps of Engineers is studying, the beach nourishment by thin layer sediment placement. So definitely excited to see that move forward. So we're working, Mike Fogut, our district engineer, is here. We're working on a plan with his staff to armor the outfall line. It'll probably be bag and rock. And the good news is we have northern winds coming in. They tend to blow a lot of sand back on the dunes. By NOAA's estimation, we can rebuild our dunes actually quite fast. Not to the level that's degraded, but to a volume that may be very complementary to the repairs we need to do to cover what we'll place over the outfall line. So more to come very soon.
So you're gonna dig down, take that hump out?
Correct.
You're gonna dig down and take that hump out. Sorry, I should.
We've got our Jeep shovels, you know, our fully shovels.
There, yeah.
In riverine applications for river restoration that I've done, we cover gas lines with Reno mat, which is an articulated block, steel mesh and concrete blanket, super heavy to just cover. And then you can also spike it deep down, and I'm sure Mike will come up with many, solutions for your consideration, but that might be one.
Yeah, there are big challenges. You're in the surf zone.
It's going to move just about anything.
I've been on a lot of conference calls, so
Yeah.
we're working on that.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks, Craig.
Staff reports, Rob. You gonna sing? Are you gonna do it in prose?
I don't have a whole lot to report. I'm doing the monthly offshore wind update in a moment. But the Humboldt Bay Symposium is on April 11th, 12th, and 13th. Encourage you all to think about attending that. That last day is on a Saturday, so good chance to learn more about Humboldt Bay. It's very science-based, that symposium. Some recent guidance about sea level rise has been coming out, and we're meeting with a coalition of local governments to do further sea level rise planning. And the Nordic project is clipping along, inching closer by the day. So I'll keep you updated as that gets further.
Compliment to our development director. We've had a couple of agency meetings that haven't always gone the way we want them, and it's not because of any opposition. It's just a matter of us communicating in a fashion that everybody understands the science before us. And some of this becomes discretionary, some of it's technical, but Rob has really taken the time to dive deep understand each level of what we have to do in this permitting process, dig into the science, work with the scientists, I guess we'll say, to do this. We're looking at mitigation. We're looking at mitigation that involves the most minute of details, but very appropriate because we're looking at protected species. And so I just want to commend the work that's being done, the amount of time committed. I believe I received an email from him at 12:59 last night. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob. All right. District Council, do you have any reports?
Nothing for me?
You can't represent us, you can't report, you got nothing? No baseball, no, you haven't started baseball yet?
Little League practice tomorrow.
Good, it's that kind of weather. Commissioner and committee reports. Mr. Patrick.
Oh, the Eel River continues to yo-yo up and down and the fish run freely, so it's kind of a typical wet year. The El Nino seems to have delivered the rainfall and repetitive sequence, and so it's good, a normal winter. And everyone's getting depressed because it's raining. No, it's good. You should be depressed if it doesn't rain. But signs of steelhead all over the place. I really like that the Chinook were the largest run since 2018 at least. And the Humboldt were reported all over the basin, and the numbers were up in Mendocino coastal streams. So at least for the moment, there's kind of good fishing news. And I'm trying to shag 19 permits right now for 5 different projects. Don't get me started. It's a frustrating exercise, but making good things happen in the Eel River. Check out eelriverrecovery.org.
Thanks, Patrick. Greg?
Oh yeah, and Greg, you said you wanted like, when does the mud come out of the eel and go into the bay? And actually, I'll do a 5-minute presentation next time with just 5 or 6 PowerPoint slides.
Perfect. Thank you.
I was asked by a co-investigator of the 44-foot project, which deals with the stored nuclear rods at Humboldt Bay Generating Station, to be on their advisory group. And that could be as part of my Humboldt responsibilities, but it could also be my responsibilities for the Harbor District. So I would like to say yes to that, and I'm happy to do that on behalf of the Harbor District, if that's the pleasure of the commission and staff. I don't know if you were also planning on wanting to be there, but I will bring back reports from that process if that's desired. I'm also super excited, and this is for the public too. That the County of Humboldt has received a grant for us to do some experiential learning, travel learning around offshore wind. And so I'm delighted I put my name in the hat and got lucky enough to be selected to be part of the group that goes to New Bedford, Massachusetts, and Martha's Vineyard, and looks at some offshore wind. And really, it's an opportunity for all of us who go and to report back to you about what our learnings are relative to supply chain operations and maintenance, and some of those hard questions for some folks who have done it longer than we have. So I'm looking forward to that. Hopefully, a very steep learning curve where I learn a whole bunch. So I appreciate that opportunity, and at risk of ringing my own bell, I just got back from a conference from the International Erosion Control Association, where I was awarded the Speaker of the Year for their conferences. That was fun. It's always good. It's nice to get a little recognition.
Maybe you should talk to Fogut about erosion control.
He knows a little bit about it.
He might.
Yeah.
Playing cards.
Exactly, yeah, and losing. Down again. Oh, I don't have anything to report.
Nada?
Not.
He didn't jump in the bay.
I didn't jump in the bay this year, no, because now you got me screwed, because we just had our CEA, where my day job, we had a heat pump webinar last weekend at the East Street Community Center in Arcata. That was very well attended. So if anybody's interested in installing heat pumps or any other type of energy efficient appliances, RCA, your local community choice aggregator has rebates for you.
Where the
I'd love
recipients
to
of some of the
call one if you could
rebates.
explain the physics.
It's take your refrigerator and turn it around and all the heat that comes out the back, that's a heat pump.
Okay, how's that? Cool.
Take turn it back around and open the door and stick your head in.
All right. I don't really have much to report. I went to the Humboldt Associated Realtors luncheon, and I listened to Rob speak. Did a fantastic job. Didn't answer my question, but answered everybody else's question very well. If you've seen Rob present here, go watch him present somewhere where he's in a large audience of people that don't know a lot about what you're talking about. He's absolutely phenomenal, first rate. So, I mean, I guess you get what you pay for, huh, Rob? You know what the hell you're talking about, and it's really nice to have that out there.
I actually found what I was looking for all that time on my phone.
Did you?
Yeah, speaking of webinars, because I know everyone's electric rates are really bad right now, including my own. RCA will be holding a residential rates webinar on March 21st online. It's, I think, 6 p.m. Where people will be there to be available to explain why rates are going up and some things that we can hope to do about that.
Awesome. That's good information because they certainly are going up.
Yeah.
All right, I don't have anything else to report. I'm gonna move on to 10A, our status report on the heavy lift terminal.
All right, this is either our 5th or 6th month in a row of a monthly report on this project. So if anyone in the audience hasn't seen the previous reports, this comes in with no context, just flying straight into what happened this past month. So our last board meeting was, I think, February 8th. A couple of days after that, February 12th and 13th, I attended the 2nd annual Missing and Murdered Indigenous Peoples Summit and Day of Action in Sacramento. It was a very educational, informative, emotional event. So the first day was in the conference center and heard hours of tragic stories. And some very clear, concise requests of tribal governments from all over the Western United States. And the next day was a march on the state capitol. Quite a number of people there, a lot of speakers, a lot of legislators, law enforcement, and again, a lot of really tragic stories and a lot of very clear, concise requests from tribal peoples. So in that spirit, we're working on a resolution about missing murdered Indigenous people, and we'll be bringing that to you in a future board meeting. Different topic, beneficial reuse of dredge materials and a request for information. So the Harbor District this past Friday, maybe I don't know, is this past Monday, earlier this week, we issued this request for information, RFI, for beneficial reuse of dredge materials. And effectively what it says is the Army Corps of Engineers does a lot of dredging, City of Eureka and Humboldt Harbor District dredge our marinas. There are various berths throughout the bay that get dredged. All of that material has the opportunity to be used in a beneficial way. So to simplify, when dredging has to occur, you scoop some stuff off the bottom, the bed of the bay, put it on a barge, and then that material has to go somewhere. Typically, the material is taken out to the ocean and dumped into the ocean. So that barge full of dredge materials opens up the bottom and just dumps out into the ocean. It's a lot to it. It's more complex than that. But it's also possible to beneficially reuse these materials in a number of different ways, such as beach replenishment. And had we done beach replenishment with the sand that is from the entrance to the bay onto our beaches probably look different this year. Our beaches are really eroding quickly, and beach nourishment could have helped. So that's an option. It's a form of beneficial reuse. It's just some examples. So anyway, we released this request for information and said, we've got a whole lot of dredge material in the future. Does anybody have any good ideas on what you would do with this? And so we released that. We're asking for responses by the end of the month, and that document comes with this table. And so we're asking, people to fill in this table. So I filled out the first row in collaboration with the County of Humboldt. So they had this project, County of Humboldt Public Works, Humboldt Bay Living Shoreline Restoration Project, in preparing for sea level rise. They have this conceptual project. We described exactly where it is, and they're looking to do two things with fill material. Could be from dredge material, creation of new salt marshes, and creation of shingle beaches. So then we can look at the type of material they want. They want some coarse gravel, and they want some fine clay and silt. And then estimated volumes in thousands of cubic yards. And there's EPA standards on what engineering with nature means. Oops. And yeah. So these are all entities that we think could have viable projects that could use beneficial reuse of dredge materials. And so just left the table blank and sent it to all of them and said, hey, can you help us fill out this table? Do you have ways that you could use dredge materials? Sent out an email actually to 400 plus people and said, please fill in this table. So we'll see what kind of response we get. This is also on our website under public notices. And I've already been getting some comments back from some people that have been saying, use the materials for sea level rise. And that is really nice. It's also easy to fantasize about really cool ideas. But what we're really looking for are specific projects. So we are looking into the future and saying, what is the potential beneficial reuse needs of Humboldt Bay in the coming 3 to 12 years? And we're looking for real projects that actually need beneficial reuse dredge materials. If there are no actual projects that are currently planned, then it's time to get serious about planning sites, volumes, real projects that need beneficial reuse, not just academic or philosophical ideas. So hopefully through this RFI, we can stimulate other entities to come up with real projects that need real volumes of material. So keep your eye out for that, and we'll report back to you on the RFI. You may have heard in the news that Crowley and the Harbor District have not come to a conclusion of come to a lease term through the exclusive right to negotiate process, and the exclusive right to negotiate naturally expires at the end of this month. So our relationship with Crowley will evolve, and we're still figuring out where to go from here, but both parties feel very confident in the future, and then we'll continue to work together. Just our nature of our relationship is evolving. You also may have seen in the news some tribal opposition to offshore wind. So in general, I can say that the Harbor District is supportive of tribes. We are also supportive of the state and renewable energy goals. And we are working with all parties to understand everyone's interests and try to find the best way to move forward, continuing to work with the state and federal government. So more news on that in the future. And that is my monthly report.
Thanks, Rob. Any comments, questions from the board?
Great summary.
Seeing that,
Thank
I'm
you.
gonna take it to the audience. Anybody care to comment on our status report?
I just wondered,
Heidi, step up to the microphone, tell us who you are and where you're from and why you're here.
Heidi Moore-Gwinnett from Fieldbrook, California. I was just wondering if there would be any application with the dredging materials in the Great Redwood Trail build out.
Please, Rob.
Great Redwood Trail. Well, so the section from Arcata to Breakcut's done, and the section from there to Eureka is already designed and under construction. So no, for those segments. Then the only possibility is from Arcata wrapping around the Samoa Peninsula through Manila, and possibly yes.
And then also Caltrans is built out some engineered designs from Arcata to Blue Lake.
Yep. Well, go from Arcadia to Blue Lake is a long way to move that kind of material, but it's a possibility, yes. I expect that Caltrans will likely be the #1 respondent to this RFI and coming up with ideas, honestly.
Hello, Commissioners. Thank you for your time. My name is Rachel Smith, and I'm the Program Manager of Core Hub. And first, I just wanted to thank you for passing the Greenport resolution. We're really appreciative. It's such an important step in how this project moves forward with respect to the natural environment. And with the news about Crowley, I want to emphasize the importance of prioritizing Greenport expertise in your selection process for a new developer. And I also want to encourage the developer selection process to move forward with community participation. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Carol Vandermeer and I live out in Manila, and tonight I'm wearing the Peninsula Community Collaborative hat. And I know in past reports, you've made some mention about establishing some sort of advisory committee. And I've heard some rumblings about, I'd like to just hear more updates on how you're doing that. And I haven't heard any outreach to any of our Peninsula Community Collaborative members. And I think that might be a good source for getting community representation from out on the peninsula. So appreciate any updates about that.
Good evening. My name is Chris Moore. I'm a field representative with Power Drives Local 34. Director Hallman, can you restate the name of that lease agreement that was going on with Crowley? That I could take it down.
Exclusive right to negotiate.
Exclusive right to negotiate. Thank you.
We call them an ERTN, exclusive right to negotiate. Gets me too. Anybody else care to comment?
Mike Auger, I'm with the ILW Longshoremen, and this isn't with the windmill report, but the chip vessel that's in right now is not able to take a full load because of the draft restrictions. So today they were trying to figure out which hatches they would slack so that they keep the draft at an adequate space. So just put that along that. The agents want to see the vessels full, and so they want to get as much as they can. But because of the restrictions, they have to cut off some of the cargo that's going in.
Thank you.
Thank you for the update.
That is news. All right. Anybody else care to comment? Seeing none, I'm going to take it to the 11A. New business, Greenport presentation from the Blue Lake Rancheria.
Hello. How are you?
Oh,
And I think Isabel's online.
Hi, can you hear me?
Hi, can you hear me? We can hear you, Isabel. We're kind of waiting for the share screen. Oh, there it is. Just got popped up. Hi, so I'm Heidi Moore Gwinnett and I am staff with the Blue Lake Rancheria. And I just wanted to take a minute to talk a little bit about our ongoing relationship with the Humboldt Bay Harbor District. First, I want to acknowledge and extend appreciation for ongoing tribal consultation. Our meetings have been very transparent, authentic, productive, and we appreciate that. Also, I wanted to thank you, Greg, for your wonderful engagement and presentation at the Humboldt Aquaculture Symposium. Oh, nice. You got a cute one. And Rob, for your attendance there as well. I think it's an issue that really warrants continued dialogue and discussion. So I appreciate you all showing up and participating. Also, Rob In particular, I appreciate the amount of research and due diligence that you've done to better unpackage and understand the issues of missing murdered Indigenous peoples. It's not wasted. Your time is not wasted on, well, I'll speak for Blue Lake Rancheria specifically. And then just to iterate a previous comment, deep appreciation for your collective resolution, positive endorsement of the resolution for Greenport. So with that, I want to talk a little bit about Blue Lake Rancheria. We're very much proponents of looking at how we might be able to be an effective partner in combating
Hello?
Hi, everyone. This is Isabel. There's no audio in the room right now.
The board is muted.
Mm.
No, we're not.
Isabel, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you.
Okay, great. And are you able to share screen?
She's muted now.
Yes, I am. One moment.
Okay.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, okay, perfect. Great. Okay. Well, just Heidi gave us a great introduction already, but again, my name's Maddie Hunt and I'm a DOE sponsored fellow for Blue Lake Rancheria. My background is in environmental studies and appropriate technology, and I'm a recent graduate of Cal Poly Humboldt. And I'll pass it to Isabel for the rest of the introduction.
Hi, everyone. My name is Isabel Irad. I'm a West Coast Ocean Alliance fellow hosted at Blue Lake Rancheria. My background is in a master's of environmental science and sustainability and development. And thank you all for allowing me to be on Zoom. Through my fellowship, I'm allowed to work hybrid. So thank you again to Rob, Executive Director Chris, and the Board of Commissioners for inviting us to speak today. And thanks to Heidi Moore-Gwinnett, the Blue Lake Rancheria Director of Government Affairs. And I would like to acknowledge where this meeting is held, which is within unceded Wiyot land along the Pacific Ocean in Wiggy, otherwise known as Humboldt Bay. Specifically, sitting near and on land, like almost all property in the United States, obtained in generally unconscionable ways from Indigenous people, and where the Wiyot have lived since time immemorial and continue to live, actively work, and care for all beings and land. Thank you again for the opportunity for us to speak for a few minutes with you all today. This presentation is a brief overview of a paper we authored of the same title. The paper is a literature review of green equipment used at ports for a way for folks to see a list of that green equipment and available funding resources for that. So the information here is not reflective of any stance by the Blue Lake Rancheria Tribal Council. We are also not tribal members. Instead, this presentation is meant to just share resources we found researching as hired fellows. Additionally, we're not experts, but we'd like to mention that the Pacific Northwest National Lab is starting with their staff to produce a West Coast specific green ports document for offshore wind. So with that all being said, all illustrative graphs and figures were made by Maddie for this presentation, and those illustrations were sourced from information from that literature review. And you may already know some of this information, but we hope it's still informative, and we can certainly share the presentation afterwards if interested. And I'll hand it to Maddie now to give some brief grounding.
So what I'm about to tell you, I'm sure you're already familiar with, but we want to provide some historic context to industrialization in the Humboldt Bay. So the Humboldt Bay has been an important part of Wiyot territory since time immemorial, and it was home to villages, essential resources, and Tolowa Island, which is the center of the Wiyot universe. Come 1850 was the California Gold Rush, which brought many new settlers and industrialization to the Bay, and ended in the devastation of thousands of Native people within the region. By the late 19th century, rapid resource extraction from gold mining industries, logging, and fishing damaged local ecosystems and introduced harmful pollutants to the bay. And this type of industrialization has persisted ever since and set the stage for the climate crisis that we now see today. Next slide. So obviously something needs to be done about climate change and to address it in a meaningful way, as Humboldt faces the highest rate of sea level rise on the West Coast. Within the century, many cultural sites such as Tolowa will be inundated by sea level rise under current emission standards. So while the development of the terminal is an important step towards lowering state emissions, it cannot come at the cost of local ecological, cultural, and social health. The image at the bottom right of this graph right here is Tolowa Island, which, as I mentioned before, is a sacred ceremonial site for the Wiyot people. The image in the upper right-hand corner is the proposed terminal development site, less than a mile from Tolowa. The proximity to Tolowa is one of the many reasons that the implementation of a green port strategy is important to an equitable development for both local tribes and also the greater Humboldt community.
So as we anticipate progress toward the proposed offshore wind heavy lift marine terminal, we're very excited about the Harbor District's adoption of a green terminal strategy and roadmap and the new federal grant funding. I won't go into any more specifics, just that we'd like to be excited, and we're excited to see the implementation, hopefully, of zero emission charging infrastructure and equipment, which is the focus of our presentation. We'll also talk about ports that are green, acknowledging that this terminal, this proposed terminal, is not like other cargo handling ports, but a place that would be a hub for the potential offshore wind industry. Zero emission equipment can be utilized and would be essential to the health of the community and environment, which Maddie will provide some background on.
So as the proposed offshore wind industry now emerges in Humboldt, we have to consider how the development of new terminals and ports in Humboldt Bay will impact our community over time. In 2023, the port industry contributed to 3% of total global carbon emissions. This is projected to grow to 15% by the year 2050. On a local scale, port pollution has major negative health effects to surrounding communities, beginning with air pollution leading to premature mortality, increased heart and lung disease, cancer risk, and respiratory symptoms, water pollution through runoff contamination, leading to pollution of recreational waters, aquaculture industries, and cultural foodways, and finally, noise and light pollution leading to wildlife disturbances, hearing impairment, high blood pressure, and sleep deprivation. Next slide. So there's state and federal regulations that are pushing for the adoption of cleaner port strategies to address these issues of pollution. An example is the California Air Resources Board, or CARB, which is a state regulatory agency that's tightening emission standards to improve air quality. So through these regulations, California ports will be required to phase in zero emissions or near zero emissions capable commercial hovercraft, or CHC, equipment within the next 2 years. So while these regulations are primarily focused on marine vessels, infrastructure required to support these transitions, which include increased grid capacity, distribution upgrades, and microgrids, are also necessary for other green port operations and equipment and may help accelerate this transition.
Before I move on, if the Harbor District staff is able to move the small box on the right corner of the screen, or to minimize it, if you press the hide thumbnail video. And I'll just continue while we work on that. So the EPA has created a national port strategy assessment to address the issue of port emissions. And the report revealed that port electrification is not only the best strategy for mitigating climate change, but is also often the most cost-effective long-term solution to on-site emission reductions. Effective strategies are also available for every type and size of port, and the most effective emission reduction strategy would be those that are tailored to the specific circumstances of the port. So whatever Humboldt terminal would need, the proposed terminal would need. Also, a bill recently introduced in the House of Representatives would amend the Clean Air Act to reduce emissions from the US shipping industry, again, protecting the health of port communities and address the environmental injustice impacts of the climate crisis. If passed, it would eliminate all carbon emissions from the shipping industry in the US entirely. And finally, the heavy-duty engine and vehicles air pollution standards are set for models years 2027. This would affect all heavy-duty vehicles, including any that are used at ports or terminals, to have more stringent nitrogen oxide emission standards. And with that, that's a very brief overview of port emissions. The other standards related to equipment emissions at ports include strategies for greener operations. So one of the strategies is shore power. This may take the form of local microgrids, wind energy, or other renewable energy sources to reduce emissions of marine vessels at berth by offering a place for these vessels to turn off their engines and plug into the local electrical grid. The second option is electrification of port equipment in this context, but electrification can include anything electrified in operations. There's also monitoring of pollutants, clean air action plans, which Long Beach is a leading example for, and you can read the rest, and this is not an all-inclusive list, but we'll discuss some of these topics from ports in case studies later on in this presentation, and we'll focus on number 2, the equipment and zero emission equipment.
So many green port strategies focus on electrified equipment because of the significant effect on emissions reductions. I made this graph based on data from various green port feasibility studies and also state regulatory agency data to display the reductions in ZE transitions. This graph compares emissions factors for diesel and electric cargo handling equipment per unit and clearly displays the significant reductions associated with ZE equipment. So as you can see on the leftmost side of the screen, the yard tractors, while producing far less emissions per unit than an RTG, which is like a very large crane, they're employed at higher rates and quantities. So the point is that zero emissions equipment, even for smaller cargo handling vehicles, makes a significant difference in port emissions overall. So here we want to leave a little disclaimer that we acknowledge that the equipment needs for the proposed Humboldt heavy lift offshore wind terminal may differ from shipping focused ports. Our research utilizes the available literature for electric port equipment, which may be used to draw comparisons for offshore wind specific port development. Due to the long timeline of the port development, new technologies may be made available and incorporated as appropriate. The offshore wind industry is relatively new and lacks substantial research and or case studies of port electrification for offshore wind manufacturing terminals. And for those reasons, our analysis focuses on currently available electro cargo handling equipment. So that being said, trends in port electrification, beginning with shore power development, is signifying a shift away from dependencies on fossil fuels in port operations and expands existing grid capacity to charge ZE equipment. Studies have shown that U.S. nationwide shore power has the potential to produce a net benefit to society up to $33 million annually, considering both costs and the health benefits of society overall. This makes the cost-benefit ratio approximately neutral despite the high upfront prices of infrastructure development. And also trends in near zero emissions and zero emissions equipment. Beginning with the largest port equipment polluters are RTGs, yard tractors, forklifts, and top handlers. And again, we acknowledge that specialized equipment for a wind port terminal may be different, but these trends generally translate to show a transition away from diesel-powered equipment and operations for ports globally.
I'll let you all read this slide. I just want to say that this slide is just to reiterate that there are billions of dollars available for supporting green equipment at the state and federal level. And that last one, CARB, is the state Clean Off-Road Equipment Vouchers, or CORE, which has additional allocations for disadvantaged communities, which Humboldt qualifies for. And Maddie will talk a little bit about CORE in the next slide.
Yeah, so I made this chart using CORE's online catalog of ZE port equipment models that also qualify for CORE vouchers. As you can see, there's a lot of ZE yard tractors that are eligible for a CORE voucher. So just as an example, a ZE yard tractor can be purchased with a voucher up to $180,000 plus an additional 10% for operations within a disadvantaged community. And while there are many manufacturers of ZER tractors, the market and technology for other types of zero emissions equipment is rapidly growing, and this reflects a trend towards electric options for port equipment generally. So terminal specific equipment is expected to include crawler cranes, yard tractors, and forklifts, but may not include RTG cranes or top handlers. Overall, it can be expected that specialized equipment needs for the offshore wind manufacturing will follow this trend, with the opportunity for incorporation into green port policy as these technologies become available.
And then in addition to the CORE funding, there is also a new federal website that consolidates info across the DOE, the EPA, the DOT for funding opportunities for low to zero emission technologies at ports. And we have 4 slides left. We'll transition into case studies that exemplify the benefits of green port strategies.
So beginning with the Port of Long Beach, they adopted their climate action plan in 2013, and some of their key green port strategies include shore power, electrification, monitoring port pollutants, and a clean air action plan. The results of these green port strategies have led to significant reductions in harmful pollutants, which you can read here on the side, beginning with a 91% reduction in diesel particulate emissions, 63% reduction in nitrogen oxides, and a 97% reduction in sulfur oxides. Next, we have Karmsund Port Authorities located in Western Norway. They adopted a smart port strategy in 2016, and some of their green port strategies include electrified harbor cranes, zone-controlled LED lighting, and also shore power. The Port Authority has entered contracts to develop the next generation of shore power connection, and they're still in the planning and development phase of this, but when it's completed, the port will provide shore power to all at-berth ships and have plans to reduce emissions by 2,500 tons per season using the new shore power system, which is also another source to generate revenue for the Port Authority.
And finally, we have the Port of San Diego, which adopted green port strategies starting in 2005. And that includes microgrid, shore power, vessel speed reduction programs, and electrification of equipment. For example, they employed an electric tugboat called the E-Wolf, and that's resulting in reducing 3,100 tons of carbon dioxide over a 10-year period. They've also implemented 2 fully electric cranes, resulting in emission reductions of 47 tons annually. So we gave a very brief overview, very high level of the potential for green strategies in Humboldt Bay. And while there are many strategies we didn't have time to cover, we particularly want to reiterate the benefits and feasibility of an all-electric zero-emission port equipment use. So deploying zero-emission equipment reduces, again, health impacts to workers, residents, visitors of the Bay related to emission and noise reductions. And although electrification can have higher upfront expenses, you can achieve lower long-term costs if you think about, one, that reduction again for the social costs associated with the human benefits of clean operations, as well as 2, the lower maintenance costs over time and the overall economic sustainability and lower fuel reliance of the port. Additionally, ports that have the opportunity to build electric infrastructure from the beginning versus ports transitioning now from fossil fuel equipment will also have lower implementation costs. And electrification policies, again, at ports align with state and nationwide emission reductions. And one day, hopefully, the emission reduction goals of the Harbor District's Green Terminal Strategy and Roadmap. And lastly, although we covered zero emission equipment, we all know there are many other strategies to make the Bay greener, of course. Core Hub and other community partners support those efforts to make the potential terminal and Bay a healthy, thriving, and sustainable place. And that's it. Thank you for your attention. And I just want to remind you that the presentation is sourced from the information from this literature we have. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. Well, thank you.
And then big questions.
I'm sure they probably can.
We can take questions. Sure.
Isabel and Maddie, thank you. My question is, in your literature search, I'm particularly interested in zeroing in on the cranes that are electric and their height and load capacity. Do you have any more specific information about that?
I don't have any specifics, and I'm not sure of their relevance depending on what types of cranes would be needed for the staging and integration of offshore wind turbines.
There's a lot of information on what we mentioned, RTG cranes, and they're heavily utilized, electrified at ports. But we learned from Rob that that's not going to be the case for the terminal, the proposed terminal. So more work would need to be looked at for cranes in general. But again, like Maddie said earlier, that with the adoption of electric cranes, the RTG crane, there's probably going to be more incentives for technology for other cranes to be electrified.
Thank you.
Being as the cranes that we're gonna use here haven't been constructed yet or even designed yet, I'm assuming that they could probably electrify them.
Thank you very much for that presentation. That was really good, really well thought out. I look forward to reading the report. Couple questions. One of the slides stated that it's anticipated that there's going to be a growth from I think it was 3% to 15% of emissions due to port activity. Do you have any more like what the driver of that is? Is that from port expansion or?
Generally, it's going to be drawn from trends in port expansion and the way that we have a globalized economy and are shipping things back and forth more commonly. I don't have a more specific answer. That's just like my high level memory based on the research I did for the white paper.
Correct, Maddie.
And with some of the funding opportunities for electrified port equipment, as you may know, most of the operating terminals here on Humboldt Bay are privately owned and operated. What sort of opportunities are there for private terminal operators to access some of this funding through CARB or others?
I believe it's available to both public and private port operators.
Statement, just because you mentioned Port of San Diego and the electric tug, they also are recently, I think just took delivery of a fully hydrogen operated tug that's operated by Crawley. So we are very much in the green report.
Yeah, there's lots of exciting new technologies still being developed and being welcomed into the market. And there's also a lot of potential for hydrogen fueled vehicles, which is what the term near zero emissions vehicle meant throughout the presentation. I didn't have a chance to address that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. We're gonna move on to 11B, consideration of initial 2024-2025 district budget preparation schedule. It can't be that time. Whoa. You don't get to leave now.
The spreadsheets are
This
coming.
is what everyone came for, right? Our budget preparation schedule?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, that's lame.
President Dale, could I just make a brief comment before we do the staff report?
Please.
In my staff report, I failed to recognize Amber Sheehan, who's with us tonight. Amber celebrating her 2nd anniversary with the Harbor District. Amber's our office support for Mindy. So she's been with us 2 years, and I apologize that I didn't recognize you in my executive director's report.
And what better way to celebrate than being with us here
Yeah,
tonight?
thank you. She's also the one responsible for our meals, so.
Yeah, she is, and she's the face of the district as well, because everybody that comes to the window sees Amber.
She is. So Chris has asked me to step from behind the curtain tonight to present to you the budget cycle, which by now I'm sure you're familiar with. But if you look at the staff report, I did have an error on it. So I put April 8th as the next meeting, which is actually April 11th, and that's when we'll start with our goals. We're going to look at Woodley Island Marina, Fields Landing Boatyard, and dredging in general for the budget goals. And we'll just continue down with the goals, which basically are the big expenditures. And then we'll present to you the preliminary budget by June, hopefully. So buckle up, it's time to go.
And you're gonna help us with your goals as well?
Always,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you, Mindy.
That's it for that subject?
It's that simple.
Any discussion from
We
the
should, we
board?
should let Mindy get more reports. That was.
Good on you.
I'm really getting this delegation thing down pretty good.
Yeah.
Are we going to have a finance committee meeting around this budget?
We can absolutely do that as part of the process.
Yeah, I think that's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
Who's on
We
that-
staff's discussed that.
you-
This is,
It's what you all put me on.
this is our step one, and staff has discussed
Am I
that
on that with you?
it may be appropriate for us to do that. So we'll
Oh,
definitely be
is it
reaching
Newman?
out.
Oh, I think it is.
It's you and Commissioner Benson.
Oh, it's us.
Oh, it's us two.
Uh-huh.
I thought Newman switched out for. Never, I will figure that out.
We can triple check. You and I actually have to meet on subcommittees and update a few, so
Yeah, okay.
we can do that soon.
Okay. All right, no other discussion from the board? Any discussion from the public? Nobody wants to comment on our budget schedule. All right, I'm gonna move on to future agenda items. So we're probably next month not gonna have MMIP
It'll
on
be
there.
in May, which
It'll
will
be in
be
May.
consistent with the
Okay.
Emergent Missing Indigenous Persons Month.
Okay. Piling removal. We're gonna talk about that at some point. I'd like to see your map. I know where all of them are at too. And we're gonna talk about our 2024-2025 budget. Anybody in here have ideas that they think we need to address with our budget? The next 6 months are your opportunity to, well, not quite 6 months, to provide input on what we do with our monies. Patrick, you're gonna give us an Eel River.
Right,
Lowdown.
why does the Bell Bay fill in? Does it have anything to do with the Eel River? It does. So I will supply linkages. And very, very few graphics, so I won't put you to sleep.
Okay, you get 3 minutes.
5.
5. deal. Rob, I'd like to see, because of this pipeline. I'd like to see your assessment of the near shore littoral cell report. That was put out 2 years ago and how those predictions. Correlate to the current situation.
I would love to. I can't believe how much I love sand transport. I never, I never knew that it would just light me on fire like it does, but it is such a fascinating topic. I would love to do that.
It doesn't have to be in depth, but just,
Ah,
I mean, it's been a while since I read that and it is riveting. And,
really cool.
and I went to all the meetings too. I went to a lot of the meetings and they were very.
We should have you attend the Harbor Safety Committee because there's going to be a presentation again.
Okay,
at the
that's-
Harbor Safety Committee on the nearshore placement, so.
Oh, geomorphology, what's it called? Is that what it is, geomorphology? It's
Literal drift.
literal cell geomorphology is just. One of God's best sleeping medicines.
If you could include in that report, just an update on the emergency repair or mitigations for the pipeline. Near shore pipeline,
Yeah.
seems like they might go together.
Any other?
Nothing from me.
Nope, okay. I'm gonna adjourn this meeting. Have everyone, please have a wonderful Easter. Easter's coming up. Enjoy your.
How about Pie Day? Everyone enjoy some pie.
Today is,
Pie Day.
today is Pie Day. Yes, I have pie at home. Today's Pie Day. We also have. St. Patty's Day coming up.
Oh, yeah.
Please be safe on St. Patty's Day and have a wonderful month. Thank you.
Thank